Wow, we would have never believed this. You can listen to us on our podcast. We're on Spotify, we're on Apple, we're on Google. Go out there and listen to us when you're driving to work, or maybe when you're just sitting at home, or you're on the treadmill at the gym. Go on out there and listen to our podcast. So we're excited about it. We're glad you're excited about it too.
And he said 9 days before you knocked on my door, they told me I had around 12 to 13 months to live. At this point, we're 14 to 15 months in. That expiration date has passed. And every day he would look at me and he'd say, Cody, I'm only alive because you gave me a reason to live.
Hey, we're so glad you joined us on lunch break today. We're here with Cody, my friend Mike. And as we're going through this, we just got to bring you life, because that's what we know you're expecting. You're expecting a dynamic story that has overcoming in it and has an opportunity to challenge you right where you're at. So, Mike, today
and I'm excited to bring Cody on the show, newer friend of mine, and a young man whose heart is fully submitted to the Lord, and he's doing big things from a young man, but he didn't have the best start out in life, but God used that, and he's going to share some of that with you today. And I think you guys are in for a treat.
Well, I think Cody, and I think as an older person on this show, I think it's really amazing. And I always talk to young people that have, so you've come over adversity in your short life, but now you're still young and you have the ability to have the wisdom that Christ gives us through the Holy Spirit that lives in our body. So I think that's something that, from the onset, is encouraging for me to hear that stuff.
Yeah. So Cody, I know now you have a business and you have a big ministry, and we're going to talk about some of your ministry stuff in our Ministry Matters show a little later. But what do you do now, and then how did you get to that place where you are?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, it's an honor to be here with you guys. Thank you so much for the opportunity to come on here. I get to share with your audience. I don't take that lightly. I love honoring. And today I run a company called Content Daily. I also do traveling and a lot of motivational speaking. So professionally, I help scale businesses with social media, and really in the personal brand space of leveraging the greatest opportunity in history, social media, to really brand people. And I think that is probably one of the greatest assets that we can invest in our modern world with the way things are going. But really the core of it, and you'll hear in my story, and the passion was always just to change lives. It was always to see that God created us perfect just the way we are, and that he gave us gifts and talents and ideas and dreams and passions for a reason. And when I went through a struggle in my childhood and finally identified that I'm perfect just the way God made me, and I began to break free of those limiting beliefs and those insecurities, I was able to fully step into who that man is, the man I am today. But now I get to travel and help a lot of other people do that. And I actually see social media as nothing more than giving the microphone to God's children so they can be a little bit louder.
I love that. And I think probably you've presented it, Cody, a little more uniquely than I've heard it presented.
Yeah. And I love that perspective, because I think Tom and I and you are all aligned in that mission to do, what you just said.
Cody, before we get too deep into your story, I've got a job here, and like I said, Mike's a hard boss, and I don't get paid unless I ask this question. But what is something that, Cody, somebody may not know about Cody, and there again, you don't have to open the closet and let the skeletons fall out. We're not there. But I mean, it's like, we say on the show a lot of times. We just had our Tuskegee Airmen for our Veterans Day show talk about he got a combat and flying a license to fight in World War II before he ever learned to drive a car. And, he never shared that on any show. So you have anything like that without divulging a deep dark
I don't
secret?
think mine's as cool as that. I always go with what first comes to my mind. I don't fight it. So growing up, I was really good at snowboarding and was beginning to become sponsored in snowboarding in Michigan, and even in motocross and paintball. So I was like the guy that I played football for 6 years. I did all the sports, but I really like the extreme adrenaline rush sports. But what a lot of people don't know is at 13 years old, I knocked my kneecap out of my leg. And I don't think I've ever said that ever. I make so much content. Everybody knows every part of my life, but I actually removed the kneecap from the leg, which really put a ceiling on where I was going in snowboarding. I had a dream and a passion of going pro, and after knocking the kneecap out, it just never was the same. And I used to tell people the like cool, crazy stories. Oh, I was riding my dirt bike, and no, the truth is I was running out the back door and I hit an old oak picnic table off of a deck, and it lodged the knee out of the leg.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
So let me ask you a question, Cody. This is for my own personal benefit here. But do you still snowboard?
I do.
Cool. Well, we'll have to talk about that.
I'm going to Salt Lake City on Monday.
Cool. We'll talk about that later. We might have a snowboarding trip coming up.
Not with me.
No, Tom.
We're gonna
Tom's
get you there.
Old man can snowboard.
Oh,
but you used to ski quite a bit.
I used to water ski and snow ski until I signed my first contract with the Weeder Corporation, and then I found out what it means to have somebody own you as a commodity. And I think it was under number 32. I think it was 32 or 33. Because one day I told my manager and agent, Marty Demersion at International Sports Management, that I was going to go skiing. And he goes, I don't think you are. And I go, I got a car. I'll be gone unless I'm traveling and, doing an exhibition or speaking. And he goes, no. He goes, look at your contract.
You don't understand how this works.
Yeah, he goes, look at your contract and read it. Did you just sign it? And I'm like, yeah, because I was getting paid money. I couldn't wait till the ink to dry to get money. And he says, well, you can't do anything that would jeopardize your ability to train and look like you do. Otherwise, you owe me money. And I was like, I guess I'm not going to go snow skiing. And I quit.
Wow.
I told him, I go, we're going to get that out of the next contract, but we never did. I realized I liked the money better than I did snow skiing. My buddies always go, hey, let's go snow skiing. I go, no, I'm a working man. At this point.
That's funny. Let's get into your story. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Why stories are so powerful, right? And I'd like to frame this a little bit for your audience and you guys. What I've learned in life is our mess is our message, and our message is our superpower. Yeah. So for me, I had quite a messy message. And so I grew up in a small town called Otsego, Michigan, which is right outside of Kalamazoo. And 3 months after I was born, my father went to prison. He's still in prison today, serving a 30-year sentence. He was a biker gang leader. And because of his poor decision making, I was raised in a home with a single mom with 2 kids. And I just knew struggle very early on. And to kind of paint a picture for you guys, I grew up really fast because, there was drugs, there was alcohol. My mom's an amazing mom. I always say I have her heart. We have a great relationship. I love my mom so much. She did the best that she could with what she had and what she knew. But, wrong guys coming around, physical, mental, emotional abuse, and poverty. I remember coming home from the school bus one day, getting off the bus and seeing that bright piece of paper on my door. And reading it, you have 30 days to, vacate the premises. It was an eviction notice. Evicted from 3 homes, lived in a car twice. And I'll never forget one time, my little sister, Autumn, she's 2.5 years younger than me. I'm probably around 7 years old. Autumn's probably around 5 or so. And, they're very strategic when you walk into a gas station because they put the candy bars right at the eye level of the children. And I remember walking in, and my sister loved Butterfingers, and Autumn saw Butterfinger right in front of her. The night before, my mom was telling me how she didn't have money for rent. And I'd heard that over and over again. I'm 7 years old, and I already knew what it was like to have financial burden as a young man. And I remember my sister grabbing the Butterfinger and, Mommy, can I have this Butterfinger? And I remember the hesitation on my mom's face. And that was tough for me. And then she's like, sure, I'll figure it out. And she looked at me and she's like, Cody, do you want something too? And I just remember looking at my mom and being like, no, I can't. I know you can't afford it. So this kind of sets the tone of the lifestyle that I was in as a young man. And I always wonder about entrepreneurship. I'm so passionate about business today as a 28-year-old man that's owned several companies. And I always wonder, is it something that you're born with? Is it something that's developed? Is it a combination of both? I couldn't give you a definitive answer, but I could tell you whatever it is, I got it. And at 13 years old, I told my mom I'm going to start my own business. My mom's like the most non-entrepreneurial person on the earth, mind you. And she's like, what do you mean you're going to start your own business? You're 13 and you know nothing about business. I'm like, well, it's simple. We live in a small country town. We have 8 neighbors on our road, Mom. I think I'll be safe. I'm going to knock on their doors and I'm offered to do yard work for them. And so I started my first business at 13 years old. And I'll never forget the next day going next door to my neighbor to my home. Now, I live in San Diego now. And back where I'm from in Michigan, you actually have land, and your neighbor isn't right next door to you. You have to actually walk, a football field or two to get to their house. And I'll never forget going up to Wally's door. He was the neighbor, and knock, knock, knock. Wally opens the door. Hey, Wally, I'm looking to start my own business this summer. I was wondering, can I mow your yard? Can I weed your garden? Can I pick up rocks and sticks, pressure wash your deck, whatever, to make some money? And I always think back on that memory. It's a fond memory of like this man probably saw this broken, insecure, hurt neighbor boy making an effort. And he's like, sure, come over tomorrow and I'll find something for you to do. And I'll never forget going over there the next day. And I'll never forget because he had a John Deere riding mower, the glorious gleaming John Deere. And in the Midwest, as a young man, it's a really big deal when you ride a riding mower for the first time. And I was so poor that we only had a push mower. So I never rode a riding mower and I didn't know how. So Wally taught me how to ride the John Deere riding mower. Amazing memory of mine, especially for a young man not having a dad. And so I mowed his yard. It was big. It was like 3-4 acres. It took hours. And then I got done, and I'll never forget going up on his deck. And he had a nice house, not like my house. And he had a pool in the backyard and had done well for himself. And he's like, pull up a chair. Slides me a Sprite across the table. And he's like, so tell me about yourself. And he began to ask me questions. He began to say, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you like? What are you good at? What don't you like? And he began to ask me questions I had never heard. I never had an adult speak to me like they actually cared about what I had to say. And I realize now that he was mentoring me. He was beginning to plant some seeds in a young, broken, insecure neighbor boy. So much so that I began to go over there day after day. And Wally became like the father that I never had. Wally became my mentor. And you fast forward about 14 months, and I end up moving in with Wally. And I end up living with him and going under his roof, and he's pouring into me. And I'll never forget when that decision was made and we worked that out with my mom. Now keep in mind, guys, because I have to be careful in this to not hurt my mom's feelings too. My mom still was in the home next door. I still had a great relationship with my mom, so I just want to throw that disclaimer in there. But Wally was what was best for me in that season of my life. And he sat me down and he said, Cody, I got to tell you something if you're going to move in with me that you need to know. And I'm like, okay. And I had noticed that he was frail for a man that was like in his later 50s, and he would cough a lot, and walking upstairs he would stop. But I guess as a young man, I kind of just looked past it. And he told me 9 days before you knocked on my door, I was diagnosed with multiple myeloma blood cancer, and I've been struggling with emphysema for years. So multiple myeloma is a bone marrow blood cancer that eats away at the bones and makes them brittle. One of the worst too, because it's terminal and your bones begin to break down and you wake up with cracked ribs and everything gets frail. And emphysema is a lung disease where you're struggling to breathe and your lungs are literally deteriorating. And he said 9 days before you knocked on my door, they told me I had around 12 to 13 months to live. Now, at this point, we're 14 to 15 months in. That expiration date has passed. And every day he would look at me and he'd say, Cody, I'm only alive because you gave me a reason to live. And I never, until a grown man, I didn't realize the weight that those words carried. But I'll tell you guys what. That man gave a broken, insecure, lost neighbor boy a reason to live, confidence, belief in himself. So I end up living with Wally till I'm 16 and he passes away. And at that point in my life, I'm heartbroken, as anybody would be. And I had to go back into the home that I grew up in, back into the brokenness, back into mom drinking, mean boyfriends, all of that stuff, after being exposed to such a different way of living life. I mean, me and Wally, he had 2 businesses. He taught me about business and money and finances. We listened to Tony Robbins tapes and Earl Nightingale sitting out on the balcony, and just changed my life. And when I say once the mind is expanded, it can never go back. My mind was expanded. I was a changed boy. I was no longer that boy that grew up in that home. And I knew it wasn't the right fit for me, so I moved out on my own. And at 16 years old, I've been on my own ever since. I'm 28 years old. It's been 12 years of figuring this life thing out, which can be hard. It's a process. But I'll tell you what, through that, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. And I've had a lot of ups and a lot of downs. But I had one thing uniquely different about me after spending time with Wally. I'll never forget when he passed away and I was praying to God. I made a pact with God. And I said, God, I just want to be for people in the world what Wally was for me. And I had this crazy, ambitious dream, because about 10, 11 months after that happened, I got invited by a friend to a conference. And at this conference, there was Eric Thomas and Gary Vaynerchuk and Darren Hardy and all these speakers. They were motivational speakers. They were successful businessmen. There were people that were traveling and speaking and impacting people's lives. And as a young man, I remember, I'll never forget seeing, I think it might have been Gary Vee in his talk. I'm all the way back in the nosebleeds. I'm a nobody with my notebook writing down every single word I can catch that they're sharing. And I knew in that exact moment that that was the calling on my life. Not because of pride or ego or wanting to be known by millions of people, but because that man was impacting the 2,000 people in the room's lives. And I knew I had a calling and an anointing on my life as a young man for that. So in high school, if you asked me what I wanted to be, and I was living on my own, working 2 jobs, going to school, graduated a year early, I would tell you, I'm going to be a motivational speaker when I grow up. I got laughed at. I got made fun of. My high school sweetheart, her name was Luna. Not throwing you under the bus, Luna, but you threw me under the bus. She literally was embarrassed by me. She made fun of me. She broke up with me because, Cody, you're embarrassing me. Why are you making these videos? And I'm this young 18-year-old. You can live your dreams. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm reading the books, and I'm passionate, and I'm hungry. And so that's kind of the journey. Is I just started making content, guys. I started making videos. I started speaking my truth. It was rocky. Through those years, I decided college wasn't for me. I had a great scholarship to go to school to be a mechanical engineer or an architect. And I said, you know what? This just doesn't feel right. This just isn't who I am. I just didn't feel like it was also in alignment with what Wally did for me. He thought different. He lived different. It didn't make sense to live like everyone else. So I went into sales because I knew as a motivational speaker, the greatest asset I could achieve for myself and learn was the art of communication. I did network marketing. I built a network marketing company called Vima from the ground up. I got to 60 grand a year, which is very hard to do in the MLM space. Business crashed overnight out from under me when they went to court with the FTC. But I learned public speaking. I learned how to build a team. I learned how to do sales. I learned about personal development. I began to go to all these big seminars. Then I did real estate with Century 21 Thomas, and I sold homes, and I learned that game, and I found the #1 agent in North Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and I learned from him, and I served him, and I started from the bottom up. Then I went into timeshare because I wanted to learn the psychology of sales, high pressure, high ticket. From there, I went on to door-to-door with AT&T, car sales with Chevy. But meanwhile, every day getting up and going to work and working the sales job, I'm in Toastmasters. I'm reading every book. I'm paying every coach. I'm joining every mastermind. I'm spending every cent I make investing in Cody. And then I had a mentor one day. I'm sitting down with him, and I'm so frustrated. I'm 21 years old. And I'm like, I'm tired of this. I don't want to sell all this crap for other people. I want to change people's lives. This doesn't feel right. And he's like, okay, well, why don't you do it? And I'm like, what do you mean I'm trying to do it? And he's like, listen, do you have a cell phone that can record videos? I'm like, yes. Can you post them on the internet? I'm like, yes. What are you getting at? Get to the point. He's like, stop making excuses. Start speaking your truth. Start being consistent with that. And I'm like, I don't have the right lighting. I don't have the right camera. I need the studio. I need the 4K camera. And he's like, you're making excuses. He's like, pull out your phone and start speaking your truth. So I did. And I pulled my phone out every single day for over 500 days in a row. 30-sec motivation check. And I began to give impactful, powerful messages in 60 seconds or less before it was cool, before TikTok, before Instagram Reels. And I don't have millions of followers, guys. But you know what I do have? I have tens of thousands of people that got to know who Cody Cottle was, like who I am, and trust who I am. I began to change their life. I began to give them value. I began to build a personal brand around myself. And 3 years ago yesterday, I just saw the story. Guys, this doesn't happen overnight. Everyone's a success story overnight. Yeah. I was 21 years old. I'm 28 today. That was 7 years ago. 3 years ago yesterday, I gave my first big keynote talk where somebody saw my social media, invited me to coffee, said, I have this team of 80 people, and I want you to keynote our event. I want you to come in and deliver a message. I'd done small stuff. I'd done some virtual stuff. I'd gone and spoke a lot of places for free and, local little networking groups. But this was the first time anyone ever paid me to come in and deliver a full keynote talk. Best moment of my life. And it was a very simple presentation. It was becoming the best version of you. I know it's basic, but man, was it powerful. And man, did it change those people's lives and open doors up for me. This year alone, I've given 7 or 8 keynote talks this year alone, being the #1 speaker to come in and speak. And I tell you guys that because that compound effect. So what I did is I built a brand around Cody. I began to produce content daily. I went on to launch a company called Motivation Everything. The company no longer exists, but at the time it was my baby. And I began to just serve. And I launched a coaching program and a mastermind. I did 6 figures in under 6 months once I figured the formula out of how you actually sell something to the audience that you've built. I went on to have people approach me in these high-level masterminds, in these circles I run in, and the friends that I made through doing this, speaking and making these videos, saying, bro, I see what you're doing on social media. Can you help me? And you guys know why a business exists? I'm just curious. What would you say to why a business? It's not a trick question. Why does a business exist?
To solve a problem.
Yes. A business exists to solve a problem. Light bulb moment. I'm in Waco, Texas at All Men's Business Owner Mastermind. All of the guys are asking me for advice on their social media and their personal brand and what I did. I stayed up till 3:30 in the morning just writing vigorously down because everyone kept asking me what I did and I didn't have a definitive answer for them. And I circled 2 things, personal branding and content daily. So I launched a company called Content Daily out of that night because I knew I could help people build a personal brand that was powerful just like I did by producing content daily. So full circle, broken, insecure little boy to 28-year-old. Our company this year will do over $350,000 just in Content Daily. The company's less than 2 years old, and we're set to change more lives.
I love your story, and it's very interesting, Cody, for me to sit here as a 64-year-old man. And, one of the things that I get out of your story is not only are you a content creator, not only are you a motivational speaker, and I think this point is missed a lot, Mike, in today's age, but you're a personal recreator of your own life. And I think that is something that our audience needs to hear. I love it that you're so young. I love it that you're able to do that. I love it that you can do this, but I can look out there, and I hope you can comment on this, Cody, because I'm going to ask you to. There's older people out there. And this is one of the things that I can tell older people, and this is something that I hope Mike can even chime in on. as a 64-year-old man, and I've had 3 careers, and I'm getting ready to do a 4th in a year and a half, you've got to be able to look, and you've got to be trainable and teachable. You never stop doing that. And that's one of the things I've always loved about doing these shows is I get inspired. I can be inspired by a 97-year-old Tuskegee airman, but I can come in here and see a 28-year-old Cody Cottle and get inspired. And I think when an older person starts to shut down and say, this is all I've got, I think that's a real dangerous spot to be. Because I do think that graveyards, and this isn't my quote, it's other people's, that there's a lot of dreams and hopes and aspirations buried there. You know, that they never said, hey, I'm old, I'm used up. So part of your followers, do you ever have some older people that you're able to help?
Oh, most of my people I serve, I would say 90% of the people I work with are all older than me.
I love that because
I want to say something to what you just said, because I think it's so important. See, I've learned as a young man, because I vigorously study personal development, the mind, the brain, the psychology behind why we live the lives we live and do the things that we do. And what I've found is that our belief system is the core of everything and what we believe. So you've heard you can't teach an old dog new tricks. That is the greatest lie that you've ever been sold. I don't care if you're 75 years old. Do you know statistically, most people build their dream in their 50s or later? Statistically, most people build their dream in their 50s, guys, or later. So what I've learned is our belief system determines our habits. And our habits are everything, how we live our life. And our habits determine our actions, and our actions determine our outcome. So I had a conversation with my mom recently, because I've been pouring into my mom. And it's really cool, guys, through this content, because a mother isn't typically receptive to a son giving her wisdom. But what I did is I began to live my truth, make my content, and it inspired my mom so much that conversations have now happened where I've been able to pour into my mom. And I'm also linking her with other mentorship and books and resources so she can hear it from more than just me, especially a woman who's gone through the process of a life similar to her. But I was talking to my mom how neuroplasticity, guys, they have debunked that you can't teach an old dog new tricks. That is all a lie. And it's currently the belief system that people are living with. And then the older generation says, like, it frustrates me so much, to be honest, guys, because you're like in your 50s or 60s and you think that like it's too late to like make the dream you had in your 20s a reality. Yeah, you're a little bit older, but you know what? You're also a lot more wiser, and you got a lot more life experience than a guy like me. But what's corrupt is the belief system that you're operating. It's like your internal operating system. Just like we upgrade our MacBook Pros to the new software, upgrade your operating system. Get a new belief system, break through the limiting beliefs, and the brain will actually rewire new neural pathways. But it's not easy. I will say for an older generation, it is harder to change your belief system because you have lived by it for so long that it's going to take you getting in proximity to people that have an upgraded operating system, and it's going to be so potent on them that it's going to rub off on you. And if you stay around long enough, the law of averages will kick in and your neural pathways will begin to change because you'll begin to live with the same habits that those people have. So sorry, I went on a tangent there, but I just
that's great, and you know it's cool that you brought up a couple things that I want to kind of key in on. One, and you said you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Tom and I had that exact conversation yesterday, and I was and a lot of older generation does believe that, but Tom is living proof of that is not true, because this is a guy. Cody, for me being 41 years old, for you being 28 years old, this man right here can keep up with each of us and maybe potentially outrun us.
Well, a year ago, I told Mike, because my daughter Tessa, she's the talent manager for Daily Wire, and so she challenged me to go onto TikTok, and so I told Mike I was, and I don't think Mike believed me. And yesterday, after a year being on TikTok, I think I finally got it. So if you go onto my TikTok, which is Touchstone, you'll see that the first ones aren't very good, but I left them out there because I wanted to be reminded where I started. So yesterday I told Mike, and he can attest to this, I go, I think I found my formula. I don't think he watched it because he really did he?
Yep.
I told him, I go, hey, watch it and see what we can do with it, because I did it. So my daughter was like, Dad, you just stuck with it. But I figured I listen to young guys like you, and I always tell older people, we need the youngers around us. Mm-hmm. They will challenge us. That was me. I tell people, I don't have Arnold Schwarzenegger's phone number in my cell phone, but we worked out together. But one of the things I did for him is I was young and dumb, and I was strong, and I was motivated. But the older guys needed the youngers to push them. So when I got older in my career, and I retired when I was 27, so I wasn't too old, but you're broken down and you're not the younger guy you was. I had younger people pushing me. So I love it that you're able to do that, Cody, because good job for you. Mike challenges me all the time. And if you're old out there, I tell people, you got to have those youngers around so they can do that. So if you're out there, I mean, don't give up on yourself. And I think that's probably a big message I tell older people, Cody. Don't give up on yourself. There, because there again, you don't want to end up, because we all are going to end up in the graveyard. Statistic is 1 out of 1 people die, but you don't want to take those hopes and dreams with you.
Well, I think that, what both of you guys said, and this was like one of the other things I wanted to key on, is it's the people you surround yourself with,
it is.
right? So like Tom, you constantly challenge me, and in a good way, and sometimes not. But
well, what are the bad ways I challenge you?
We'll talk about that later.
I'm concerned about that now. I'm like, holy smokes! I've been a pastor 28 years. I'm leaving a bad example.
But I'm always like propelled forward by spending time with you and by spending time with guys like Cody, guys that have the energy and are going places with their life. And just because Tom's 64 doesn't mean that he's not going somewhere like as a next step and going to accomplish the next big thing. And just because Cody's 28 doesn't mean he hasn't already had more life experience than a lot of 28-year-olds. And I'm in the middle of my life, and what's funny is I probably relate more to Cody's age than most people my age, because my kids are all the same age as all of my friends that are around Cody's age, and so that keeps me young. But then staying around Tom brings in the wisdom, so it
makes you feel old.
I was careful not to say that. But
I had a mentor tell me one time, guys, that it's really important to have people that have already run the race speaking into your life, people that are running the race with you, very similar place in life. Those are very important. And then people that are behind you in the race that you're helping up. So I think we got to have our mentors, we got to have our close confidants and our peers and our inner circle and the guys that champion us and we champion them, and the accountability. But then we also got to be pouring into others. Proximity is power. So to the listener listening to this, I would really challenge you to become more self-aware of who you're allowing to speak into your life.
Yeah. And that's biblical too, Cody, because it's the Barnabas, Paul, Timothy model. Barnabas was helping Paul, the new convert, becoming an apostle, writing 2/3 of the New Testament. He's giving him examples, but he's also pulling this young half Greek young man named Timothy along with him, and that's what I think that people. I think that model is one that the scriptures have left us. That I think if a young person or an older person or a person in the middle miss out on, they're going to miss out on a lot.
So on that, and I think you guys would both agree with me on this. I'm looking at you guys, I'm watching this video. I would challenge you. Who is your mentor? Yes. Do you have one? And if you don't,
who is your
one.
Wally?
And who is your mentee?
Yeah.
If you don't, find one.
Yeah, because I think, Cody, I don't think you knocked on Wally's door by happenstance. No. I don't think Wally was living next to you by happenstance. Yeah. I do believe, if we do believe God is omnipotent and sovereign, that there was a bigger plan there. And if you're not out there and you don't believe, I'm not pushing that on you. I'm saying that there's a different life you could live if you did have that faith, because I do believe what Cody said, that your belief will become reality. And I do believe that Christianity is the most optimistic a perspective that you can get out there. I think the Bible is the most optimistic book because there's always hope. And I love the fact that Wally found hope in a 16-year-old Cody Cottle, and it gave him purpose.
Yes.
People always talk about, they want to be motivated. And I go, motivation doesn't just happen. There's got to be purpose. Once you have a purpose, then you can be motivated for that purpose. And I think what you did, Cody, is you gave Wally purpose and helped him live that life. Yeah. So, I think as if you're out there and you're older, you may want to volunteer. You may want to be part of something that would put you around a Cody Cottle. I always tell people that there's, if you go to a church or a Boys and Girls Club or Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, or even volunteer at your children's school, there are people that will motivate you, and you can motivate others.
Well, I think what's cool is Wally was Cody's mentor at a young age, may or may not have done other big things in his life, right? But he impacted one person, probably more, but he impacted one person who's now gone on to impact thousands.
As I think about that, we're all speaking Wally's name on the internet, and who knows where that's going to go. But that wasn't what he sat down and talked about when he gave a 16-year-old who has never rode a John Deere tractor. I'm thinking, okay, so here I am, Cody. I'm the old guy. I'm sitting there, and I'm thinking about my neighbor coming to my door, and he's like, hey, I'd like to do your lawn. Okay, I got a lawnmower. Well, I've never used that. I think that's the end of the conversation in most people's mind, right? It's like, come back when you can do the job you want to do, but Wally didn't. I think, he took a risk. And I do believe, Cody, and you like your opinion on it, I think without risk, you have no reward. And I think you took that when your girlfriend, Luna, didn't like it, and you were a young kid, and you were passionate, and you were taking a risk, because there again, you look at every teenage boy, they don't want to look stupid, but you are taking a risk to gather a reward that you're now seeing materialize, and you lost some things in your young life. But that risk is worth the reward. I don't care how you cut it, how you slice it, how you look at it. Without the risk, there is no reward. And of course, we've heard the greater the risk, the greater the reward. Mm-hmm. And I do think the two coincide to each other. And I do believe I can make a faith argument for it, because the Bible says faith is that element that is a conviction in our heart without us seeing the outcome of it. And I think that without, we all like to operate in our five senses. We can't see it, taste it, touch it, smell it, hear it. We don't believe it, but that pulls us out. And I do believe there was a faith element pulling that young Cody along that says, I really don't care what my girlfriend thinks about me. I'm going to do it.
Yeah. Well, let me speak to that. There was two things that came on my mind. For one, I do believe that God creates divine alignment for our assignment. So I do believe that God positioned Wally, who was told that he was going to die. God brought a young boy that gave him a reason to live in purpose. There's a saying that if you take away a man's purpose, he'll wither away and die. So I think we have to have a purpose. For me, I needed the father I never had. Even though I had a father, I didn't have an intimate relationship with him at that time. I didn't know who God was. I didn't have intimacy with him. So he worked through this man as a divine alignment, I believe, for my assignment. Had that situation ever happened for both of us, the outcome. But with that, because you talked about no risk, no reward, I truly know the Spirit of God lives within me and lives within you, lives within all of us. Not everybody's in tune with that. But inside of that, there is what we call intuition. We naturally will call it our intuition. That is nothing more than the Holy Spirit and the Spirit of God guiding and directing you. And I've learned in my life, oftentimes I get promptings to go right or to go left. The question is, am I obedient? And oftentimes the way that I feel I'm supposed to go is the route I'm most afraid of, what I'm most scared of. And on the other side of my fears, because I've gone through this many times now with Luna, many other situations, was everything I ever wanted in my life. I've never regretted going towards a fear. I've never regretted listening to my gut instinct or intuition, as our world would call it. And then you end up at a place that's pretty cool, like where I'm at, where you guys are at today. And they say life's lived forwards, but understood backwards. And you look backwards and you go, oh my God, like I see what you're doing there, God. Going through it, I didn't understand it. I was questioning it. Now, let me disclaimer. I still was complaining, guys. Like, I'm not perfect. I was still whining through the process, but I stayed obedient to the process. And anytime I didn't, there was an inner intuition of I went the wrong way.
So Cody, we're getting towards the end of the show here. Is there anything you would like to leave our audience with?
Yeah, I know you guys are going to have another ministry one that we'll do, but what God's put on my heart is this. I touched on the beginning of the show. I'm going to end the show with it. To the person listening or watching this, there will never be another you in the world. There will never be another man or woman with the same retina scan, the same fingerprint, the same body type, the same vocal cords, the gifts, the talents, the ideas, the dreams, the passions, the quirky little things about yourself that you think are weird, or the things that you think disqualify you. Our God doesn't make mistakes. And if there was one thing I could speak into your audience is, at some point you need to become the best version of yourself. You need to stop comparing yourself to other people and step into the man or woman that God has created you to be. You know, in this world after COVID and everything that's happened, depression is at an all-time high. Suicide is at an all-time high. Anxiety is at an all-time high. And what I've found is that it's through using what God gave us, discovering the gifts he gave us, mastering those gifts, mastering our craft, the uniqueness about us, and giving them away to the world, that we experience fulfillment and joy and happiness in our life. So I'm on a quest. Guys, I'm on a quest to discover who God created me to be. And God gave us free will. I got to choose to take these gifts and create content daily. That is a choice. I don't believe God's like, you have to build content daily. No, he gave me gifts. And he said, Cody, you're my son, and I love you, and I made you perfect the way you are. Sorry, you're not playing NBA. You're not that tall. You're not that athletic. I didn't give you that gift set. Dang. But you know what I did give you? I did give you a unique energy. I did give you a gift of communication. I did give you a certain heart posture in the way that you will see my children. And I meet people, and I see who God created them to be, not the way that they see themselves in the mirror, not even the decisions they've made in their life. So the one thing I always try to leave people with is look in the mirror. And I pray that your audience sees themselves in the way that our Father sees them.
I love it, Cody. You've inspired me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I love it. So there again, we're here with Cody Cottle, and we're going to be continuing Cody's story and his journey on muscle matters, because muscles do matter, and there's matters that involve muscles. And then I believe we're going to be doing a ministry matters with Cody Cottle also. So, hey, stay tuned. Catch them all so you get the whole story. There again, thank you for watching. You're the reason we do this. You're the reason Cody does it. So, hey, God bless.
God bless.
Thank you for tuning in.